Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, something called complex numbers and imaginary numbers. It's actually very, very, very simple. 90% of it is calculator work, so it's not a difficult concept. So we're going to go through this pretty quickly. At quarter after, you guys will take your 4-question quiz. You'll have 15 minutes, hopefully. Okay? Okay, so next page. How can we take the square root of a negative number? So we have been saying all along that you can't take the square root of a negative. If the index is even, you can't have a negative underneath the radical, right? If the index is odd, you can. We agree with that? So now we have to learn how to take the square root when we have an even index and we have a negative underneath that radical. Very simple. Here's your rule. Have to have it memorized. Ready? Square root of a negative 1 is I. I stands for imaginary. You're going to find your I in your pi key, okay, down underneath your double E. See it there? Okay. You're going to use that I, not a regular I. It means imaginary, okay, so you have to use that I, not a regular I. All right, so square root of negative 1 is I. You have to have it memorized, okay, guys? Negative 1, I. All right, so when we start talking about square roots of larger integers, square root of negative 4, we know it's a perfect square, right? So how could I break up a 4 so that I have a negative 1? Well, 4 and negative 1, right? Does that make sense? Say yes. Yeah. What's the square root of 4? What's the square root of negative 1? So what's the square root of negative 4? 2i, right? And we always want to have what in front? Plus and minus, yeah. So we have our plus and minus 2i. What do you think? Hard? Yes? Really hard? Super hard? Incredibly hard? Excruciating? Not so much? Huh? Okay, great. Square root of negative 16, what is it, guys? Well, it's just showing you how it breaks down so that you have that square root of negative 1. Now, you don't have to do that. You can very easily look at square root of negative 16 and tell me the answer is 4i, because it has the negative underneath, right? So every time you see a negative underneath a radical that has an even index, we just pull out an I. Good? Okay, so that gives us plus and minus 4i. Okay with that? So what about when it's not a perfect square? Good. How am I going to break that down? Good. We want the negative to go with the what, though? We want it to go with the perfect square, right? We want it to go with that perfect square. So 9 and 2, negative 9 and 2. What's the square root of a negative 9? 3i. And can you take the square root of 2? No. So you're going to have plus and minus 3 square root of 2 I. Notice where that I is? At the end. Is it underneath the radical? No, it is not. Okay. All right, so try square root of negative 72 for me. Break it down. Okay, how'd you break it down? Good. Square root of negative 36, square root of 2. So what do we get? I hear somebody whispering it. Plus and minus 1. Oh. Awesome. Plus and minus 6 radical 2, I. How many people got it right? Very nice. Any problems, questions, concerns? Not so much? Okay. So before I told you your calculator can do this, right? But in order for your calculator to do this, you have to be in a specific setting. Okay, so what I want everybody to do is hit home and go to their settings, which is option 5. Open up your document settings. And notice where it says real or complex. We want this to say rectangular. Okay, so you're going to open that up, or get that drop-down menu, and select rectangular. Okay, this will allow me to work with imaginary numbers and complex numbers in a calculator page. Okay, you're going to make that default and hit OK. And then press 4 to get back to your current. We good? Okay, so I want you to real quick add a calculator page. Control I, add calculator. Put in the square root of negative 36. What'd you get? Okay, it's only going to give you the principal root, which we already know. It's not going to give you that plus or minus, but it's going to give you the square root. Pretty simple. Now, is it going to do it if it's not a perfect square? No. So what if I put in that square root of negative 18, right? And it's going to give me the decimal approximation, but with the I at the end. Okay? We good? Okay, next page. So, if the square root of negative 1 equals I, what's I squared equal? Careful. Negative 1. Why is it negative 1? Okay. Say it. Yeah, that's right. If I square this side, I have to square this side. What happens when I square square root? Yeah, so I'm left with that, right? My shoes, sorry. Okay, so you have to make sure that these two things you have memorized. Okay, you have to have them memorized because when we get into operations, you're going to have to start replacing I squared every time you see it with negative 1. Okay, so imaginary numbers are cyclic. Do you guys know what cyclic means? Constant, goes in a cycle, right? What's cyclic in nature? Huh? Waves, tide, yeah, the tide, weather, seasons, right? It's cyclic. Okay, so our imaginary numbers are also cyclic. I to the first power is, that should be easy, I, okay? I squared is negative 1. I cubed. How can we find out? Sure. Let's go back to my calculator page and throw in I cubed. Negative I. And based on my cycle here, I have I, negative 1, negative I. What do you think I to the fourth is going to be? 1. Very good. Okay, so again, these complex numbers are cyclic. So I have I, negative 1, negative I, 1. And it used to be, before we had the use of this wonderful calculator, if I wanted I to the 25th power, I would say I to the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 5th. Woo! I to the 25th power equals I. Do I have to do that anymore? No, because I can do what? Put it into your calculator. Okay? But it is cyclic, and it goes about by this 4-piece wheel, right, going this way. So you can take this exponent here and divide it by 4. What do you get? What do you get when you divide 25 by 4? Okay. 6 with a remainder of, yes, a remainder. I know we're going back to like elementary school math. 1. 6 with a remainder of 1. What's 6 times 4? And then I need how many more to get to a 25? Yikes. Okay, 1. All right, so the remainder is 1. So we use I to the first power. Okay? So what if I had I to the 39th? 39 divided by 4 is? Yeah, 9 with a remainder of 3. So we use I to the third. 1, 2, 3. This equals negative I. So you see how that works? So, you don't remember how to do remainders? Okay. All right, so again, don't need it right now. We have our calculator to do this for us. We're not going to spend much time on that. Just need you to know that it's cyclic and it does go around like that, okay? All right, so next page. Let's talk about complex numbers. Those were all imaginary numbers, right? Just imaginary. Now let's talk complex. Complex means that we're going to have a real part and an imaginary part, okay? That real part and an imaginary part is always set up like this, A plus BI. A is some real number, okay? So this is your real part. And BI is your imaginary part, okay? So if I had 3 plus 2i, what's my real part? 3. And what's my imaginary? 2i. Got it? So it's always written in this form A plus BI, unless they specify otherwise. But 99% of the time, you will see it written as A plus BI. Okay? And it's the sum or the difference of imaginary number and a real number. B is your imaginary part. The whole thing is imaginary. If it has an I attached to it, Joe, it's imaginary. Okay? We okay? Okay, next page. So, let's say we want to add together two complex numbers. So let's say I have 2 plus 3i. And I want to add to that 3 minus 4i. Okay, so this is actually really simple. All I have to do is combine like terms. I have my real terms and I have my imaginary terms. So when I put these together, what would I add together? What are my like terms here? 2 and 3, which gives me 5. Good, 3i and negative 4i. What's 3i minus 4i? Negative 1i. So minus I. So just combining like terms. So how would you do that on the calculator? 2 plus 3i plus 3 minus 4i. Make sure you get the same thing. You got it? So should you ever get one of these wrong? Nope, never. Okay. So adding, good. Do I need to do more? Good, subtracting. Now subtraction's a little bit different because we have to remember something. Let's say I have 2 plus 4i minus 3 minus 2i. What do you think I'm going to have to remember to do? Something important. We'll say it again? Keep, change, right? I got to change those signs. We're subtracting here. So this is the same thing as 2 plus 4i, and then what? Minus 3 plus 2i. All right, got to change those signs. So once you do that, then you can add your like terms, which is going to give us what? Okay. So when you put it into the calculator, what do you have to remember to have? Parentheses. Got to have those parentheses. Because if you don't, it's not going to distribute through that negative like you want it to. Okay? We okay? Multiplying. Okay. I'm going to hit Control-M so it's easier to type in here. You're going to want to as well. 3 plus 4i 2 minus 3i. We'll give it a shot. Okay. How do I have to multiply these? I got a FOIL. Okay, I do have to FOIL this out. So, start FOILing for me. What do I get? 6. Okay, you guys FOIL very strange, but we'll go with it. 6 plus 8i minus 9i. Good, minus 12i squared. Okay, 12i squared. Got to make sure you have that squared. Don't forget about that. Oh, I forgot about it. Thought I had it. All right. Okay, now what? Sure, I can combine like terms, but what else do I need to take care of? No. What did I tell you guys was important? What are the 2 things you have to have memorized? Square root of negative 1 is, and I squared is negative 1. Do I have an I squared? Need to replace it with a negative 1. Okay, so all I did was combine like terms, and I got rid of that I squared and made it a negative 1. So now I have 6 minus I, and then that's going to be a what? Plus 12. Or 18 minus I. Does the calculator do it for you? Sure. Okay. 3 plus 4i times 2 minus 3i. You should get the same thing. Are you okay? Problems, questions, concerns? Not so much? Nope? Okay. So let's talk about dividing complex numbers. 3 minus 4i, 3 plus, no. Negative 3 minus 4i. I don't know. We'll give it a shot. Okay, any ideas? I can have lots of negatives in the denominator. Can't have radicals in the denominator. I can have negatives. Don't care for negative exponents. Don't have any of those though, so I'm okay. Okay, so you know how when we were getting radicals out of the denominator? How did I get rid of them? Nope. You have one on your quiz, so. I have to multiply by the denominator's conjugate. Very good. So if you have a radical in the denominator, multiply the denominator's conjugate, right? So with complex numbers, if you're dividing, guess what? Yeah. What's the conjugate of negative 3 minus 4i? Negative 3 plus 4i. Okay, so you multiply by the conjugate. All right, so what do you have to do in the numerator? FOIL. What about the denominator? Do I have to FOIL it all the way out? Just first and last, because what happens to the center terms? They cancel out. Okay, so 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. 3 times positive 4i is positive 12i. Negative 4i times negative 3 is positive 12i. Negative 4i times positive 4i is negative 16i squared. Hello. What was that? Okay. Negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. Negative 4i plus positive 4i is negative 16i squared. What don't I like? I-squareds. What are they? Yeah. Right? Those are negative ones. Agreed? So now, I know I'm going to have 24i here. I have negative 9. Negative 16 times negative 1? Positive 16. Negative 9 plus 16? 7. So it's going to be 7 plus 24i in the numerator. Negative 16 times negative 1? 16 plus 9? 16 plus 9? 25. So there's your answer. Okay, so those are a little bit more work, obviously, right? 90% of the time you will simply put it into your calculator and you will get your answer. Okay? But you do have to know how to do it out by hand. All right, we're going to stop here. We'll finish this lesson tomorrow. I'm going to send you the quiz. So make sure that you save this, okay, guys? And we will pick up on 2.3 tomorrow.